Hello, everyone. Today we are going to look at the POLC a little bit more closely. That's the planning, organizing, leading, and controlling framework that sets up the textbook that we're using for this course on Human Resources Organizational Behavior 101, Introduction to Management. So these four core management functions are really considered to be at the heart of management. So most of the things that we do as managers will fall or be closely related into planning, organizing, leading, inspiring people, and controlling, meaning we're making sure that the work that's being done, that the products, the tasks, etc., are meeting certain standards. So that's the control mechanism. Doesn't mean that I'm micromanaging or I'm control freak. It means I'm measuring things we do according to some standard and or pivoting it, moving it, seeing where it falls against some standard. So a lot of what we do is going to be within the POLC, and depending on what kind of manager you are, where you sit in the hierarchy, what your team looks like, you will be doing different actions in each of these, and you may be doing some of them more, and you may be doing some of them less. But it offers an explanatory framework for us to think about what managers do on a day-to-day basis or week-to-week basis, if you will. So if we start with planning, we're going to break planning down a little bit more and talk about what that is, right? We set goals, we plan out what needs to be done. If we do that, we're going to be more successful than if we don't plan. So for this to be successful as a manager, we want to make sure that we are aware of the environment that we are in, internal to the organization, as well as external, right? So if you have a small team, pay attention to your team, pay attention to what goes on outside of the team, right? So we know what we have, and then we are also going to want to forecast to see what the future is going to be, right? So what are we doing next week? What are we doing in 3 months, in 3 years, right? So we're always looking at where we're at, we're looking at where we're going, and we're planning accordingly. And for us to be successful in doing this, we are also making a lot of decisions. So as a manager, we need to make good decisions. We know from research that more than 50% of decisions in organizations fail. Ow, right? That's rough. Luckily, we can do things to improve our decision making. There's a different video that I will be doing, haven't yet, that deals with all the intricacies of decisions and decision making. So you can search for decision making or give me a comment and I'll redirect you or direct you to some of that. Let's look at what we do when we plan. What are the steps we go through? Firstly, as I already talked about, we do an environmental scan. We pay attention to what goes on here and outside. We gather information. We think about where we're going in the future. What are those future conditions and what does that look like going forward? And then we also have to establish goals. Your organization is going to call them goals, sometimes objectives, sometimes targets, sometimes something completely different. It means that we have an aim for our action. And this aim, this goal, target, objective, whatever you call it, needs to be measurable. It needs to be time specific. It needs to be relevant, and it needs to be achievable. We also need to be able to measure it, right? So it needs to be specific. So we are establishing these objectives. We are associating a plan and a timeline with them. Now that we have goals and a plan, now we have to think about what are the activities that are going to make us meet those goals. So if your goal is to get more fit and healthy, that is always my goal, right? I want to increase my exercise. I want to eat healthier. I want to sleep healthier. Trust me, I struggle with this constantly. Those are my goals and objectives. My plan is to be healthier. But what does that actually look like? So here in number 4, I now have to think about the actions. So my actions are going to be to buy a new pair of tennis shoes, sneakers, whatever they're called nowadays, so that I can run 3 times a week outside, so I can walk to the yoga studio for 2 classes a week. Those are very specific actions that will bring me to my goal, right? And so we keep breaking these down into action steps, right? So on Monday, I'm walking to the yoga studio. What am I doing to make sure that that is happening? I'm setting up my green smoothie in the morning. And trust me, I struggle with this too. I'm thinking about how I can make better plans for myself to be healthier. Organizations do the same thing. You do the same thing for the goals that you have in your life. And then we're going to evaluate, and we're going to actually pay attention to where we're being successful, right? So when we have success, when I have been running 3 times in a week, when I've been to the yoga studio twice in a week, then I'm going to celebrate. Yay, right? So I get to maybe buy a new Fitbit, right? Or whatever that is. So we evaluate success. We reward ourselves. We take corrective actions where we need to. So if things didn't go as well, I only ran 1 time last week. Why is that? What was stopping me? Identify the barriers and fix it. We also have 3 planning types that I don't have written here. They're in your textbook. They are strategic, tactical, and operational. You should know what they are. So go to your book, or maybe in the comments down below, you can write them out, or I can type them out for you. Strategic, tactical, operational, they have different horizons, time horizons for planning, and they also have different activities associated with them. And they also tend to occur at different levels in the organization, right? For instance, the strategic level, it's going to be the top level of the organization. That's going to be the top managers and executives planning strategically, right? Typically in the longer term, right? So go to your book and find that. Organizing, right? So when we are organizing, we are taking all of the resources that we have, and we are making sure that we are putting them in the right place at the right time, so that we can be the most efficient and the most effective with them. And remember what effectiveness is. We have already defined that one time. Effectiveness means we're meeting the goals we have set out for us. Efficiency means we're doing it with either less resources, or we're getting more results for the same resources, whether that's time or money or something else like people. So to make sure we organize our resources in the best manner possible, we can have structures to help us with that. So for your personal life, you might have calendars, to-do lists, you have iPhones, right? You have paper and pen, you have structure that helps you achieve your goals. In organization, we have something called organizational charts that are the visual of our structure of the organization, which is typically called organizational design. And this talks about what positions or what jobs in the organizations communicate and are linked to what other jobs or positions in the organization, and how work is broken down, right? So if you look at an organizational chart, that is the structure of an organization. Then we also have something called departmentalization. And this basically talks about how we cluster or merge or group different jobs together or separately, right? How do we departmentalize? How do we organize at the level of the job? Do you have all HR in one department, right? So HR is specific to a department, or do you have one HR person sitting in each other department, right? So if you're a product organization like Louis Vuitton and you sell handbags, right? You might have North America, you might have Europe, etc. So you might have an HR person in North America, you might have an HR person in Europe, instead of having HR centralized on the East Coast in the United States. So this is about how we cluster the jobs that we have within an organization. Job design is related to structure, and this is how we design the job. So organizing at the particular level of the job. So for one job within the organization, what are the tasks and activities and duties, responsibilities that are associated with that job, right? So think about your job. You might have a cashier, you might have a cook, you might have a server, you might have a host in a restaurant. Each one of these jobs have different tasks. The host doesn't go back in the back of the kitchen to cook. The host seats and greets the customer. The cook cooks, right? So job design is about assigning tasks, duties, responsibilities to a specific job. So job design, the process of putting together various elements, right? Those tasks, duties, responsibilities to form a job. And this needs to make sense for the company. So the company can utilize these resources the best. It needs to make sense for the person. Because if you choose to have a broader job, so the hostess also cooks, then now we have different skill requirements for that hostess. Not only this person need to be a people person, they also need to know how to cook, right? So each job has certain requirements that come with it. And you as an organization have to decide how you design the jobs that make sense for your goals. Okay, so leading, we've talked about leading many times, so I'm not going to spend too much time up here because that's covered in other videos. Remember, leading is the informal, not the formal. It's the informal way we get people excited about meeting goals. And so, as we already know, we are pulling from a lot of different literatures, such as psychology and sociology, to inform us about people, their personalities, their attitudes, their behaviors, so that we as managers can lead them better. It is our job as managers to make sure that we can lead the people that we have. And when you look at any survey of managers nowadays, most of our employees don't think we have great leadership here in this country or globally, right? And I'm talking about companies, organizations, government, whatever, right? We don't have a ton of amazing leaders. So how can you become one, right? And so if we are effective as leaders, our employees will be enthusiastic, they will be happy, they want to go over and beyond their job description and their job duties. Finally, we have controlling, and I just keep skipping ahead to see where I'm at here. So controlling, as we already know, we've defined it a couple of times right now, is that we are measuring some type of output and we are comparing it to performance standards, a performance standard that has been set. And so we definitely should do that for each individual employee. That's called a performance evaluation. We can do it for the department, for the team, we can do it for products, we can do it at different levels in the organization. And so what that essentially looks like is you start up here by first setting the performance standards. What is the standard that people need to meet or exceed? What is the standard by which you know if somebody's not meeting it? Once we have the performance standards, now we're going to measure the performance, and it's tricky to find good measurements of performance. We're going to measure the performance, and we're going to compare it to the standard that we already have, right? So now we know if people meet, exceed, or fall below. And after that, we're going to fix it, right? So if somebody's not doing their job, we need to identify why they're not doing their job, how they're not doing their job, and help them actually do their job better, right? If they're exceeding, wow, do you have a high potential on your hands? How can you do succession planning? How can you do career development? How can you make sure that they grow to become something that's bigger in your organization? And so at all levels in the organizations, we do control to some degree. So with that, I'm going to close it right now. That's going to be the POLC, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye.